Hello and welcome back. My name is Christina and I'm your host. This is episode 5 in the Eterra Cycle series. Today I want to talk about origins. Not only the origins of the book as a story, but the deeper origins of its feeling. Because some novels begin with plot, some begin with character, some begin with a scene, or a line of dialogue, or an image so sharp you can't ignore it. This book began with an image before it began with a plot. What came first was not the full map of Eterra, not the mechanics of the depths, not even the final shape of Aelit's journey. What came first was the feeling of a layered world, a civilization built above what it no longer understands, a buried order suspended over older truths, a silence beneath everything that was not empty but watchful. That feeling came first, and once it arrived, the rest of the novel had to grow around it. From the beginning, I knew that descent in a story like this could never remain merely physical. To go downward had to mean more than traveling through space. It had to mean moving into inheritance, into memory, into buried danger, into truths that cannot become unknown once touched. That became the spine of the novel. On the surface, this is a story of survival, of pursuit, of forbidden knowledge, of movement through a broken and stratified world. But beneath that, the book is really about transformation through contact. And I mean contact in a costly sense. Not heroic transformation in the simple, reassuring way. Not a clean arc in which a character becomes braver, stronger, wiser, and emerges polished by the ordeal. I was interested in a more troubling kind of transformation. The kind that happens when hidden truth does not merely enlighten a person, but changes their scale of being. The kind that leaves someone unable to return to the smaller life they once inhabited. I wanted discovery in this book to feel expansive. I wanted revelation to behave less like liberation and more like exposure. That is one of the deepest reasons Eterra is built the way it is. The setting had to embody concealment. It had to feel layered, oppressive, ancient, and unstable all at once. A vertical world allowed hierarchy to become landscape. The upper levels suggest order, distance, control, and separation from origins. The lower levels suggest labor, burial, secrecy, pressure, and the accumulation of whatever a civilization has chosen not to face. In that sense, the city is not just a setting, it is a physical expression of denial. Each layer exists partly to avoid reckoning with the one beneath it. That mattered enormously to me while writing, because I did not want the architecture to function as ornament. I wanted the world to be making an argument of its own. I was also very interested in the tension between decay and design. Eterra had to feel old enough to carry history in its walls, but I did not want that age to become nostalgic. I was not interested in ruins merely for atmosphere. I did not want decorative ancientness. I wanted structures that still exert force. I wanted the past to feel materially active. Stone, metal, dust, sealed chambers, forgotten mechanisms, collapsed passageways. None of these are there simply to create mood. They are part of the book's deeper logic. They suggest that what has been hidden does not disappear. It waits. It presses outward. It shapes the lives of people who do not yet know its name. And from those concerns, Aelit emerged very naturally. She had to be a character for whom knowledge was never abstract. She could not simply move through the world as a curious observer, deciphering mysteries from a safe emotional distance. The novel needed someone whose connection to buried reality was intimate long before she fully understood it. That intimacy is built into her from the beginning, through her anomalous condition, through her relationship to the tuning fork, through the legacy of her father. All of that places the conflict inside her before the external story fully reveals itself. That was important to me because I wanted the deeper structures of the novel, the ancient ones, the metaphysical ones, the buried ones, to feel personal rather than decorative. And that brings me to her father, who is central to the emotional design of the book. For all the mythology in the novel, for all the descent and hidden architecture and the larger cosmology, the emotional core remains bound to inheritance. What do parents pass on? What do they pass on knowingly? What do they pass on without understanding the full cost? What can they protect a child from? And what can they only delay? What does love look like in a world where knowledge itself can become dangerous? Elit's father leaves behind more than an object, more than a secret, more than a clue. He leaves behind a burdened kind of trust, and that trust hurts because it is incomplete. He gives her fragments, warnings, tools, absences. He cannot give her safety. In many ways, the book grows from that wound. The tuning fork became the ideal symbol because it holds so many of the novel's concerns in one form. It is an artifact, but also an inheritance. It is a key, but not a comforting one. It belongs to knowledge, but in this book, knowledge is never passive. To resonate is to answer and to be answered. That was essential. I wanted the novel's central object to carry the sense that contact is mutual, that opening a door is never only a matter of walking through it. Sometimes the act of seeking alters the seeker before any explanation has even arrived. The group around Aelit was built in deliberate contrast to her burden. Ronan, Kyle, and Syrah are not there simply to fill roles or distribute exposition. Each one embodies a different way of surviving. Ronan represents action, discipline, and the stripped down morality of endurance. Kale brings skepticism, intelligence, and the sharpness of someone who has learned not to romanticize truth. Syrah carries resilience shaped by damage, but also wit, friction, and a kind of stubborn human vitality that prevents the novel from collapsing into a single emotional tone. Together, they give the descent texture. Without them, Aelit's journey might have become solitary in the wrong way. With them, the story can hold both intimacy and scale. That tonal balance mattered a great deal while writing the book. One of the hardest challenges was maintaining atmosphere without allowing atmosphere to become inertia. Because this is a heavy world, a layered world, a claustrophobic world. The prose needed to carry density without losing momentum. I wanted the language to feel tactile, mineral, pressure, laden, but I also wanted the reader to feel movement. The constant pull downward, inward, toward revelation, toward collapse, toward something older than the words available to describe it. That pressure had to live not only in the plot, but in the texture of sentences and images. At the same time, I never wanted the book to become monotonously bleak. Severity alone cannot sustain a novel. Even in a harsh world, you need contrast, you need memory, shelter, intimacy, tenderness. Some of the most important scenes in the book, for me, are not the loudest revelations or the biggest confrontations. They are the quieter pauses that come after damage, when characters are forced simply to exist together. Those moments matter because they restore scale to suffering. Without them, catastrophe becomes abstract. And if catastrophe becomes abstract, it loses emotional truth. Another idea that guided me throughout the novel was this: ancient truth should not feel noble simply because it is ancient. There is a tendency in speculative fiction to treat buried civilizations and lost knowledge as inherently magnificent, as though depth automatically guarantees wisdom. I wanted to resist that. What lies below in this book is powerful, yes, and beautiful in certain terrible ways. But it is not reassuring. It does not exist to validate the characters. It does not reward curiosity with comforting clarity. The deeper reality of the world is not waiting to bless anyone for arriving. It remains other, immense, partially legible, dangerous. That principle shaped the ending as well. I never wanted the close of the book to feel like a clean triumph. Even if the immediate conflict reaches a stopping point, The deeper condition cannot be resolved so neatly. The final movements of the novel are designed to offer the emotional shape of rest without granting true finality. That false calm was important. The characters need it. The reader needs it. But because the story has always been about contact with something larger than the original frame of the journey, the ending had to preserve expansion. It had to suggest that what seemed like the heart of the mystery may only have been one chamber within it. That is why the novel ends in unease rather than closure, not because I distrust endings, but because this particular story is about irreversibility. Aelit cannot return to the scale of person she was at the beginning. Neither can the world, not entirely. Once certain structures have been touched, once certain buried relationships between power, memory, architecture, and identity have been exposed, the old explanations no longer hold. The ending had to honor that. It had to say that survival is real, but not sufficient. And that truth, once entered, does not politely stay where it was found. If the novel has one central concern beneath all its machinery, I think it may be this. Some journeys do not lead to answers so much as to a permanent change in the kind of questions a person is capable of asking. That is what I wanted the reader to feel at the end. Not merely that the story could continue, but that the world itself had become larger, darker, and more intimate than it first appeared. Not simply that danger remains, but that understanding has itself become part of the danger. The descent matters because it leaves a mark. The buried world matters because it answers back. And Aelit matters because she is the one forced to carry that answer forward. And that leads naturally to the coda, the song of the hollow world. The coda matters to me because it shifts register. It moves away from commentary, away from immediate character experience, away from the narrower human frame of plot, and opens the book into something more ancient, more collective, more mythic. It asks the reader to step briefly outside the immediate story and hear the deeper music beneath it. In that coda, the world is older than kingdoms, older than maps, older than the names men give to things when they want to believe they understand them. There is already a song beneath the world, not sung by men, not sung by birds, not sung even by wind, but something older than language and kinder than silence. That phrase mattered very much to me. Kinder than silence, because the buried world in this story is not merely hostile. It is not a simple abyss. It listens, it keeps, it remembers. The hollow world in the coda is not just a place beneath the earth. It is the deeper body of reality beneath the surface life of kingdoms, banners, wars, and names. The surface is the rind, the outer shell, the weathered skin. Below it lies the inward country, the hidden breadth, the place where light is born and does not need the sun. That vision allowed me to frame the deeper world not as a dungeon, not even mainly as a ruin, but as a kingdom of inwardness, a deeper order, a reality beneath the reality people think they inhabit. And within that coda, the architects appear in their oldest sense, not merely builders, not merely masons, but architects of passage, architects of measure, architects of accord between the seen and the unseen. That distinction is crucial because the true sin in this mythology is not descent itself. It is domination. It is the human temptation to mistake access for ownership, to mistake contact for entitlement, to hear a song and assume it was sung for you alone. That is where the first betrayal begins, not with swords, not with war, but with certainty, with ambition, with the hardening of the soul that says, I understand what others do not, therefore the deep things are mine to use. That, to me, is one of the central spiritual tensions of the Eterra Cycle, the difference between listening and mastering, between reverence and command, between accord and possession. The coda carries that tension all the way to its final line. The world is not empty. The world is not dead. The world is deeper than our fear. I wanted that line to feel both like a conclusion and like an opening. A final line that might also be the first, because that is the movement of this world. Every descent is also an awakening. Every answer enlarges the mystery. Every chamber opens onto another, and what matters most in the end is not conquest, not mastery, not even explanation in the simple sense. What matters is whether someone can stand at the seam of the world and listen. So, if episode 5 has a single thought at its center, I think it is this: Eterra was never only meant to be a world of secrets below. It was meant to be a world in which depth changes the meaning of everything above it. A story where architecture is memory, where inheritance is both love and burden, where descent becomes contact, and where truth is not a prize, but a mark left on whoever dares to touch it. Thank you for listening. My name is Christina. This was episode 5 of the Eterra Cycle series. And next time, we'll continue exploring the deeper architecture of the world, the old orders that shaped it, and the human cost of drawing near to what was buried for a reason. See you soon.